why it's this much and maybe not this much. You know, as a hard money lender, we had to do that over and over and over again because people tend to gravitate towards the highest comp. Hey, here's what I can sell it for, right? And we're like, well, you know, your house sits in front of a park bench next to a liquor store on Main Street. You're not going to get the one that has like the comp. I know it's 2 blocks away, but it's up the hill and has a view of LA. Sorry, that's just not the same comp. But as a seller, what are you, right? You're always optimistic as we can get as much as, well, it's not that different. No, it's big. It's a big difference, right? And so now that's a big, but there are differences on like houses, positioning, view, everything else that when you have folks go through it, I can tell you that I just recently sat with a seller and I had my predetermined idea as to what the house was going to be worth. I'm going to walk back here and grab some water, but I had my ideal as to what I thought the house was worth, and I'd done the comps, I pulled everything, I had all the data, and I was off. They pointed out to me that I was off. What they said was, hey, he's like, well, you're not using, why aren't you using this comp? And this comp, this agent kept it off the MLS, but they had a sign in front of the house, and I didn't see it. And pointed out, it's like, well, this house is selling, it just sold after being like a week on the market, and it sold for like $60,000 or $70,000 more than what I was giving value to the house. Now, in the investment business, that's almost all of the profit on $1 million house. And so I was low on my offer. And I said, all right, well, let me check that house out. Turns out it was one of my clients who had fixed it up and was selling it. And so it was an easy phone. Like I looked up the title, I'm like, okay, I know him. So I called him up. I said, hey, are you an escrow? He's like, oh yeah, we got 3 offers. We're taking this one. Laid it out for me. And then I went back to them. I said, okay, hey, I appreciate that comp. I didn't see that. They sold it off market. It wasn't on the MLS. And I pulled up the MLS, right? Because I wanted my picks. Right now, I had lost credibility in that, you know, I left that property out. And it made me look like, hey, I'm trying to basically maneuver to have you sell me the property for less. And I said, all right, let's take that into adjustment. But let's look at that property. And, you know, we went a few doors down, walked into it. I said, okay, well, here's how it differs from your property. You know, he'd spent almost $500,000 on that property, where we were going to spend, you know, $100,000 on this property, because they had expanded the backyard. They had done a lot of things. I said, look, he's got a pool. He has a view. You don't have a view because his house was positioned, even though it's just a few houses down, is positioned essentially between 2 other blocks, so there's no house blocking his view. So this was in Huntington Harbor. So, so anyhow, I go through all this because that dialogue right now, when you're talking to sellers, I think is very important to be completely candid with them, because whatever you leave out, you know, keep in mind that with all the tools that they have nowadays, they're kind of coming to their own assumption as to what the value is, right? And they're obsessing about it for months. You're looking at it for 2 hours, right? So at this point, I mean, they're the expert, then you've got to listen a little bit, right? And get their opinion as to what it is, because they're going to guide you to what they want to list it for. If you're telling them this is what you should list it for, and, you know, this is it, that's not an open dialogue. And if they're directing you to do that, you should explain to them what I just said. Like, you know, listen, you know your neighbors. You know the neighborhoods. You know this. I mean, I know the neighborhood too, but you know the neighborhood from living here. I don't know who your neighbors are. I don't know if you have a barking dog, whereas that other house doesn't have at the middle of the night. You know, these are the things that are going to affect the value of your property. So let's talk about each one and go over and incorporate them into the pricing side of it, so that they're doing a lot of the talking. Does that make sense? Here's another thing from a sales standpoint. Do you know that the more you get someone to talk when you're with them, the more they like you?
Yeah.
Do you know why?
Because they like to hear the voice.
Right. So she actually said it right. Because they like to hear their own voice. So subconsciously what happens is that your own voice makes you feel comfortable because it's been with you your whole life. And the more that you can get them to talk, the more comfortable they feel with you. As silly as that sounds, right? That just listening and being patient. So I used to wear, I wasn't as casual before, but I had a mentor tell me once, he said, well, wear blue. Like blue is the most trusting color. You're going on, going to visit homes or what have you, wear the color blue. And I asked him why. He says, well, what's your favorite color? And I'm like, so that's actually the most favorite color is blue. In fact, if you look around, there's shades of blue, gray, there's a lot of blue in the room. Black, a lot of people like because it's slimming and people just right?
It's a universal color.
Yeah. So, but one thing he said to me, he goes, well, let me ask you. He said, what color is the sky? Blue. He goes, have you ever not trusted the sky? I'm like, that's a good point. I never thought about that, right? So I bought a bunch of baby blue shirts or sky blue shirts because I felt trusting. So, but there's all these little things that come into play to make someone feel comfortable. The other thing is, as part of your plan, I think you need to figure out an exit. I'm going to look around and say, just gamble and say there's no teenagers here, right? So, what's your exit? If you don't have an exit in mind, you don't have a plan. So I can tell you that one thing that I learned, and I learned this late in life, unfortunately, is that we should have structured our business early on for an exit. Because you build up this business, you build up, your real estate career, and then what? You get hurt. Something happens. On the way here, actually, on the 605, hope it wasn't, but there was a car, ambulances, all this, and a yellow tarp over the driver's side. Well, I know yellow tarps on the freeway aren't good. So usually they just move you off to the side. So what happens? Death. So what's your exit? How do you get out of your business so that you can either, and I'm not even saying just get out of your business, but ultimately you might have to, right? Because you spent 20 years building up a flow of business, and that should be your focus is how do you get a flow of business? What's the process that you create that works for you to have that flow? And once you create that flow, you don't want to just give it up, right? It's like a restaurant. They don't generally just close up, they sell it. So how can you sell your business to someone else? And can you sell it? Or is it once you remove you, the business is over? So if you're the business, there's no exit. You're trapped. You've created a trap for yourself. So don't trap yourself, right? Figure out what that flow is that you want to create an exit for. And I can tell you, it comes with having processes, having systems that work, that are accountable. There's an accountability that you have to the process. Even when it's not working, there's a process to figure out why it's not working. And then you have to have your plan. What's your plan B? Because, what's the old saying? Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. That's like, oh, I better have a different plan, right? So there's a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. And at what point do you abandon plan A for plan B? Right? And for some of you, it's getting out of real estate. If you're just not, because if you don't have the passion for it, here, so my wife tells me when she goes with me to a mixer, and she's sitting there, and she's not in the real estate business, and I'm like, next time, I'm like, oh, that was great. She's like, really? She goes, all they did was talk about real estate, and I'm like, yeah, it was awesome, and that's not her passion, and so if it's not your passion, just figure out what it is. This goes for any business, really, anything that you want to do. And have a plan B, have a plan C, have a way to judge success, have a way to judge failures, right? And I can tell you, I tell like my soccer teams this. I said, you win a game, you don't really learn much. What you've done in practice and what you've done worked, okay? But you don't really learn much in the game. When you get your ass kicked, you learn what didn't work, right? And you're forced to like adjust and change and do all that stuff. And that's, I think, I'm going to say is something that we don't do oftentimes. When something fails, you know, we're just like, oh man, that's a bummer. All right, so what do brokers tell you? Just get up, keep doing it again. So what's the definition of crazy? Exactly. So don't be crazy, right? Figure out what's not working and then go do it. And, you know, here's the other thing that you need to recognize, and I hope that for the brokers that are here that you're not doing this to your agents. You know, there's a bias with the brokers. As much as they want you to like, sit there and do whatever you can do and be good and go out and get sales, they make money off of your commissions, right? So they're telling you things that they know or assume is going to get them more commissions for you to make more money, right? And there's a trickle down. Make sure that if you're just a licensed agent, that you're also keeping that in mind. That they have a business to run if you're working for their business, which is why I asked, why don't you have your broker's license? Because it just gives you that security. Now, for some of you, you're going to sit there and you don't want the liability, you don't want this, whatever. You don't have, you can still be a broker associate. And for some of you, that is absolutely 100% probably the right answer because you need that environment. You want that environment, and you're a better, let's call it number 2 person than a better number 1 person. Does that make sense? Right? You don't necessarily want to have to make all the decisions. You don't want to have that worry. You might want to have a team. You know, how many of you guys have a team? So it's a very lonely business, by the way, right? Would you guys agree? You're out there door knocking, or you're out there marketing, or you're picking up the phone call, and you know, I mean, let's look at our business, right? Cold calling sucks. Door knocking, yes, sucks. You guys all say it, sucks. What else you gotta do? Like mailers, suck. I mean, everything that we do to try to get business is terrible. It's not a fun thing, right? It's not like we're on TV being like celebrities or what have you, and the business just kind of comes to us. And I can tell you from the guys that are on TV, they're all, you know what, here's what was told me. Because he's now started a YouTube channel. He said, you know, I can pick up maybe 100,000 viewers, 150,000 viewers on a TV show. He said, I can get millions on YouTube. And guess what? YouTube is offering you all the channel. And there's royalties and income that come from that as well. But is that not a great equalizer? Right? So the same things that these guys that are on TV, pros and all that stuff are doing, you can also do. And you know, it has less to do with, I'm going to say appearance than it does with content. Because the people that are out there are searching for content. They don't look for, you know, hey, that guy's really good looking, that girl's, that's the one I want to pick. They want the one that's going to give them the most content. And guess what? You guys, most of you, have been in business for at least 5 years. You're all experts. It takes 5,000 hours to be an expert in something. So you guys at this point, or if you're not an expert yet, you're pretty close. The tactics, marketing, you know, 100%, I call it kind of golden rule prospecting, is what I do, you know, and I always kind of think of whoever I'm working with first, and what's the golden rule, right? You guys all knew the golden rule, you knew it, you learned it at age 5. Absolutely. So why has it changed? It changes because of greed, necessity, fear, right? That's golden rule still works. It's still the same thing. And fall back to whatever. If your best interest is that person, then they're going to see that and trust you. And no matter what color you wear, if your mindset is not that, they're going to see right through it. Just like you do when people call. I mean, you've all dealt with salespeople I'm sure you get, I mean, I'm on some list that I get